All right, welcome to another Thursday night meditation. We are back in action. Tonight, I would like to take questions, or at least give the opportunity first. See if you can direct this. We got a few people we don't see very often, so that's always good. Maybe a good time for a different kind of question. So, I like to open the floor for questions. Remember, my answers are just my answers. You ultimately have to come up with your own, but mine come from more of an Eastern philosophy background, many years, decades even, and I do my best to stick to things that are, let's say, in alignment with natural laws, natural principles. So, does anybody have a question to start? Just a show of hands. Okay, nothing like leaving me hanging. We got one. All right. I've always got a topic on the top of my mind anyway, but let's see what your question is.
So, what's your opinion about the law of attraction, and what does the Tao allow, so to speak? I mean, what things does the Tao consider to be proper to direct your way, and what things aren't? Is that whole law of attraction, that book of secret thing, was that all just a bunch of nonsense?
Okay, absolutely not nonsense, but definitely incomplete. Hello, Mr. Tomate. Who here has heard of it, first of all, this idea of law of attraction? Anybody not hear of it? Raise your hand if you did not. Did anybody try to apply it and feel like it was real or not real? Anybody feel like they've had success with it, or they've observed that it's real rather than just believe a book or a movie?
I've always found that it's like partial but not complete because it says, if you just say something, it comes to you. I think it's more about what's inside of you that you don't know that you're emanating. It's more about what's really inside and not just what you say. It's more complex than what it says.
Okay, that's fair. I think a problem with yeah, this is you don't know what's inside of you. That's the problem. And people have gone nearly crazy trying to attract things into their lives just by wishing. I heard a wise person once say, I've wished for a lot of things in my life that I never got, but I got just about everything I worked hard for. Law of attraction, in my experience, is a point of focus. It's a clarity. It also has to be like a knowing clearly what you want, and then your every action is towards that. So I can go all the way back to college age when I learned about this sort of thing. And I went to a dealer. I wanted my first motorcycle. I guess no, it wasn't even college. It was 17. I got my first motorcycle. So I put a brochure on my wall. And I don't remember how long later, but some opportunity came up that someone offered me. And then when I looked at how much money I could make, I could easily buy the motorcycle. So I knew what I wanted. I put it on my wall. I didn't really give it a lot of thought. And the opportunity presented itself that then added up to easily buying that motorcycle. I did the same thing with my first Jeep. Put the brochure on the wall. Didn't really think much of it. Every time I would go to my bedroom, I'd see that picture on the wall, but it became subconscious. And then I remember being offered a certain kind of job, and the same thing I was able to, I can buy that Jeep. So it wasn't like I sat down, meditated, and tried to make the thing appear out of thin air. But the clarity in my mind and the repetition of having it there on the wall seemed to have certainly attracted the opportunity to get it if that's what I really wanted. But a very key point there was, one, I had to take the opportunity. I had to actively make the income to do it. But two, it was on my wall and I consciously forgot about it. I wasn't like every day, oh my God, how am I going to get it? Oh my goodness, and stressing over it. Because there also seems to be something very real about blocking things to yourself. And part of that could be very much you're stressing over what you don't have, and so you spend a lot of energy doing the wrong things, or unable to pursue what you want because you're so worried about what you don't have, if that makes sense. So what happens ultimately, it's an energy control. It's a point of focus and an energy control. And what I mean by that is how you spend your energy every day. If I want to be in great shape, I can wish it all I want, but nothing's going to happen unless I get out there and sweat. I want amazing health. I have to look at every meal as, is this food or is this poison, basically? And poison could be something that kills you instantly, like cyanide, or it could be poison like some fast food that's poisoning you every time you have it in a way that you don't really realize. Little bit, until you have heart disease or something. So if your every action is clear, or if every choice is clear in the direction of your desire, then you're certainly going to attract. The universe is going to help you get that. And I have found, let's say when the dojang was at its heights, some of you have been around a long time. We've been up over 200 students at times, and things really booming. And what was that? It was just that we were focused on training and learning and getting the most out of it, and it was literally changing lives, where people would come to the practice and they would leave with feeling better than before. Stress just melted away. People were getting in better shape, having better relationships with their children and their spouses, etc., etc. So there was all this positive energy coming around it. When you feel positive like that, students talk to each other, they talk to their friends, oh, this is such a great experience that I'm having there, and then more people come. And you see how it all feeds on itself? As opposed to sitting there stressing, trying to get students, thinking all about the business side of things. I never thought the business side, I always thought the experience, to give to students what I got from the beginning. That's why I became a martial arts teacher, because within months it changed my life, and I knew. I was also 17 when I knew exactly what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, and I've never lost that passion, still to this day, getting close to 40 years. So there was a clarity there. Where did that come from? You can say Tao is involved. It's sort of like I was born to do this, and I was able to catch on to that, and that's why I never lost it. It wasn't fake. It wasn't for the wrong reasons. Something came up from inside me. My life experience from growing up all the way to the point of actually training, to the point of realizing how it changed my thinking, the philosophy, and how I treated people, how I thought of others, and how I wanted always to pursue improvement. It's a constant, never-ending pursuit of perfection that you never attain. And so I learned early on from my very first teacher, you graduate when you die. It was actually on a written test we had to take. When does your training end? And the answer is when you die, because it's a life training. Martial arts, real martial arts, is a life training. It's not military. It's not physical only, punching and kicking. Yes, it's that as well. If you don't live long, you're not going to learn very much, so you should know how to protect yourself. But in that pursuit, you learn how not to fight And so ultimately, one of the goals is to lead to a better life. Higher goal, know yourself. Know yourself to the point where you can get beyond the ego. You can raise the consciousness, which brings me full circle to law of attraction and this idea of trying to be, by trying to, let's say, create the right frequency, this positive frequency to attract what you want, you actually can work against yourself. But when you really know yourself, meditating regularly is very different. Your inner world becomes centered, becomes quiet, becomes empty. Empty meaning no thought. Now, no thought is very different than pursuing goals and stressing over when you're going to get it. Because the when is something you can't control, even though most goal-setting gurus tell you to write a date down. You write a date down, it creates pressure. Pressure is stress. Stress can work against you, wasting your energy. If you're clear about what you want, your every action could lead towards getting that, and I do believe the universe helps you. Because in my experience, that's what's happened. Things came, and that's why I ask you, have you seen it work in your life? There's also a side in my experience that I believe there's a script. There's certain things you can have and certain things you can't have. You just won't. It's not in this lifetime for you. So that's another thing. If it's the right path for you, things are going to come. If it's the wrong path, it's not going to come. And I don't just mean material things. I mean, there'll be so many obstacles in the way, it seems to become impossible. Seemingly impossible. Now, obstacles can also mean an opportunity to grow. So there's you as you are, and there's a certain destiny. And you can have that, you can be in that sort of, you can almost coast in that kind of a path, if that makes sense. But to almost become a different person, you have a different destiny, you have to change enough, and that can be growth. So you grow into your ability to have something very different. But you can't have this when your path is here. You have to become something different. And interestingly enough, this can also be something I've seen with cancer, a sickness. So your whole being, the way you think, the way you eat, the way the way you feel, the way you live is on a path of cancer. If you actually became a different person, that cancer can go away like that. So the law of attraction, both the good and the bad. In other words, and this is the problem again of knowing yourself. Why can't I get this? Why can't I get this? And you're stressing over it and you have no idea what's in your subconscious mind. But there is a way to know. Through meditation, you become extremely sensitive to yourself. And then you can see how certain people or certain situations really affect you, especially emotionally. Your emotions tell the truth of your subconscious mind. So if you're stressing over things, that tells the truth of how you feel about those things. You can't pretend they don't bother you when they do. But very few people, I do believe you need to train it. Very few people are sensitive enough to themselves. They don't really, they haven't discovered their ego. Discovery of the ego. Remember, this is the ultimate goal of martial arts. Discovery and then destruction of it. And the destruction of it is to really become someone else. In fact, no one else. The more we can master that, the more we can direct that energy towards something like law of attraction without any stress, without any, I mean, you can have passion and drive to do the activities because action's a big part of it. But getting it is more like automatic when the time is right as opposed to stressing over getting it with a deadline. You know, that idea, a concept of being like a, what's the word, like a Pollyanna. It's like everything's great. And it's not true. You know, when they're looking in the mirror by themselves at night, they may be depressed, but in front of everybody, everything's great. You can't fool the Tao, I guess I could say, since the Tao came up into the question. The Tao is the truth. The Tao is nature. Nature is the truth. If there isn't enough sunlight, if there isn't enough water, if there isn't enough minerals in the ground, and if the ground isn't fertile enough, the plant dies. Everything has to be right, or there's no life. And so the closer we can live towards natural laws, the more likely we're going to have a smoother existence. And then our clear energy can attract the things and the people in our lives. I think most people have had spiritual experiences, but they just sort of shrug it off, or maybe don't think they can talk about it because other people, maybe they think won't I don't know. It's like they don't think other people had the experiences. But when I ask people privately, most people have had pretty spiritual experiences. This is not all there is. That's not even a belief. That's a knowing. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, as it's been said in the past. Most of these teachings are passed down by other men or women who may or may not have it together themselves. But they have this information that they can sell you. And it's very interesting, and many people are interested because they want to change their lives. Look at the source. Are they peaceful? Are they, is it a fake happy or is it a real happy? All the things about living right are going to come out through the sincere person, not just trying to sell you something. And they may believe it fully, but if it comes to money, the people selling you the concept make the most money, and the people reading the concept don't, in many cases. So I want to fall back on, you really have to know yourself. And there is no more important, better skill to have than the ability to quiet your mind, control your thoughts. You get to the point where you actually experience even your subconscious. And no, you're not really conscious of the subconscious, but again, feelings expose the subconscious. Many people think enlightenment is something to pursue when actually everybody is enlightened. They just don't remember. They just don't realize they're completely connected to all that is, to God, to the source, and they just forget. And so consistently connecting to that, getting that center, makes everything okay on the physical. Because everything on the physical becomes just an experience. And then what do you do with that experience? Another question. Yes, Ms. Beaumont. You have to unmute first.
I have an afterthought on that. While you were talking, I was thinking that the law of attraction.
You have an aftertaste? What?
An afterthought.
No, I heard you.
Afterthought. That a therapist once said you can have two alcoholics in a big room that don't know each other, but they'll be drawn to each other like magnets. And so as you're talking, I'm thinking about that. But one of the things that when they hit bottom, it says they have vague spiritual longings. And if you think of the 12 steps, they have to acknowledge their life is unmanageable. And then in the end, they seek through prayer and meditation to what? Make their lives better and do better and make amends to other people. So it's sort of a parallel idea, that it can be on the negative that they're drawn to something, the law of attraction, but you can also evolve through something higher than that and become a more outwardly spiritual person.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And I would say that the 12 steps, in my opinion, absolutely came from somebody with martial arts experience, because those 12 steps are very consistent with the same things I've learned without the 12 steps. But God is a big part of that as well, acknowledging a higher power. And I think that is a huge part of what's missing in people's lives today. Somehow, somewhere, we forgot about God. Now, God doesn't have to be this old man with a white beard floating around in space. That's kind of silly. But there's a consciousness that we're a part of. It's an awareness. It's the one that could create all that we live in. We're a part of that. We're not separate from that. Being separate from that is actually original sin. All the troubles come when you think you're separate. So you want to get rid of the troubles, get back to connecting to that. Absolutely, we can attract the kind of people that we are like, right? We also we can gravitate towards someone that makes us feel better about ourselves. So, at least in your mind, if you're lower on the totem pole, in other words, you don't see you're very valuable, you might like to be with lower people, so you can feel better about yourself. When actually, if you want change to happen, you should try to get around people that are higher than you, that are better off than you, have more money, better condition, better health, better attitude. You get around those people, because if you get around the negative people, it's like taking relationship advice from the guy who's got 3 divorces. It's like, does he really know what he's doing? You go to somebody who has what you want. But there's another aspect, and it's an important aspect of spiritual development. You lose the wanting. And what does that mean? It's particularly, in other words, there's nothing more important than connecting to all that is. That's number one. And of course you have to make a living, but how much is enough? Because as soon as we get into that circus, the mouse on the wheel of keeping up with something and getting more and acquiring material things, we lose ourselves. We don't have even the time or the energy to connect to God. So simplify. You lose something, you lose your house, cars, whatever. Do like that. Because they have no value. Except what you give it. If it's really important to you, then you're going to be stressed. But if you see it for what it is, it's just water under the bridge. It's just life changing. Maybe something more will come later, maybe something less. But it's all an experience. And how you respond to the experience determines everything about your life. Too much stress. That's why law of attraction is about, I want a Lamborghini, I want this 6 acres and 50 acres, and I want horses, and okay, put it on a picture, put it in they have a name for that actually, vision board, I think they call it. Yeah, you can make pictures and put it on a board, and then you sort of like keep it out of, not out of view, actually in a place where you see it, but you don't keep stressing over it. You just like, I would like that, and you just plant the seeds and then live life in a way that's good for you, good for others around you, etc., etc. Live a positive life. Don't fake it. Get around people that have those kind of things, because that will rub off on you, which again is more law of attraction. And you think about it too, even if it was money related, and you get around people who have more what you want, they may have opportunities for you. And I'm not saying make the friend because you want something from them. I'm saying just being around those circles can create opportunities for you. That's been my experience how the Tao works. The craziest situations, I meet the certain person and it leads to something. And that was one thing I learned early on that I recommend. When an opportunity presents itself, take it. Don't overthink it. Don't let fear drive you. You know, sometimes people stay in a job they hate, but they've had opportunities and they're afraid to change. You see an opportunity, go for it. Because that, in a lot of ways, is life or the Tao telling you, you're ready for this now. But your brain, your thinking can get in the way and say, no, I'm not. And you can keep yourself back. Because you never know what person, what job, what even, geez, you may even be on a trip somewhere, you just happen to go. You never know what life's going to bring you, but if you keep doing the same thing day after day and seeing the same people, traveling the same roads, you're the hamster on the wheel. Another question.
Hi, it's me. The bird's quiet. I just had something I wanted to share. A friend of mine, his name's Stuart Wilde. He wrote a bunch of books. I guess back in the 90s or 20s. I was traveling a lot. Used to always read.
Stuart Wilde is a friend of yours?
Yes, well, he's passed away now, but yes. You know Stewie?
I don't know him personally. I read a
Oh
couple of
yeah,
his
well,
books.
I read his books, and actually through a mutual friend, I was able to meet him. But he said something one time. He said, if you are always in a state of I want, I want, I want, what you're really saying to the universe is I don't have, I don't have, I don't have. And it always kind of like floated through my mind. So when you were just saying that, I thought of what he said, and I thought it was a good point to maybe just share with a group. Because sometimes I kick myself like, I really want this and I really want that. So stop saying that, because all you're saying is, I don't have it, I don't have it, I don't have it.
And that creates the stress, and that creates the negative energy, and that is your whole pushing it away instead of attracting it to you, right?
Yeah, yeah. So he was very smart.
There is that's the thing about law of attraction. It's the concept of it, the rules of it, is you have to be running at the same frequency. You know, it could be relationships you attract. Let's say you're a woman who keeps getting a bad boyfriend, maybe one who's abusive, maybe one who yells, maybe even gets physical. And so you get out of that relationship and then you attract another guy exactly like that. And another guy exactly like that. And it's like you never grow out of that because you're running at a certain frequency that attracts that. And that can run with money, that can run with relationships, that can run with anything, but it's like that frequency. You have to get out of that. And if it's a frequency above you where you're at, in other words, you have to grow. It's like you're in third grade and you have to get to seventh grade. There's a shift there. And yeah, exactly what you were just saying. It's the idea of lack is keeping you down. So you're going to keep attracting this instead of what you really want. That's why put it out there, have clarity, pursue it. Pursue it can be making a map. What's a map? You know, if I got to get to New Jersey, I have to jump on 81 to 78, and I'm already in New Jersey. Just two roads, but it's long roads. But I know if I go to 77, I'm going to end up in a whole different place. Life is like that. You just have to, am I doing the things I need to do to get what I really want? And then just being on the right road, taking the right actions can lead you to something new. You might learn something new about yourself and end up changing that goal. Don't come from lack. That's negative. It keeps you down. And trying to control results creates a lot of stress. We are getting the results in direct relation to our thoughts and actions, how we feel, all together. We are getting those kind of results. But like I said, in my experience, there's also a script that there's only so much we can We can vary. There was a good example once. I forget where it was, but where I read it. So they make a video game. They put it on a disc. Within that disc, you can explore all kinds of different worlds. You can do lots of different things, but as long as it was programmed into that disc, you're limited by what was programmed into that disc. That's basically like your script. You stay within that story, but there's many ways you can play that story, I guess is one way to put it. So you have some limitation. And that's why I say either you grow out of who you were, or you change your expectations and go with the flow more, which is really what a spiritual person does. See, if you make God the most important thing, source, your connection to that consciousness, if that's the most important thing, why does all this other stuff matter? It doesn't, except how much we make it matter. Another question. Yes, sir. Mr. Antomate.
Yes, sir. My question is, you have had experience teaching young kids. And so my question is, how do you think kids who maybe go home to a family that isn't so much connected to the philosophies that you incorporate, how do they manage that, do you think? Like
Are we talking about a young kid, or are we talking
yeah,
about just a young person?
no,
Young
like
adult?
a young kid. Like when I volunteered for the Lohan testing, like that age group. I'm just curious to know if you have any insight on that.
So this is right along the lines of what I meant by the script. Your life experience leads you to what your passions are, what you love, what you don't like, right? What you may hate in life. You can put two kids in the same family with an alcoholic father who abuses the mother, always yelling at everybody. No, there's no peace in the house. And one kid could become a drug addict and basically homeless, and the other one could become billionaire with the greatest success. What's the difference? Same house. Something inside. One turned it into, I don't want to be that guy. The other one is, I don't have any value and I hate this life. You see? So one is going to, you can't control your environment. And now you asked about martial arts and the people at home not having that philosophy. I mean, I wasn't a young kid, but I was 17. And although my father wasn't abusive, he knocked it since day one. He thought it was just a fad, and what are you doing, wasting your time with that, and you just go get a job, etc., etc. So all that negativity, and I had this inside passion, and made no difference what he said. He never had any impact on me that I shouldn't do it. That's how powerful that is, or that can be. And so whatever the philosophy is at home, if a child is learning, well, how you respond is going to be what you experience. Well, then already he's starting to work on his breathing to calm down when things are stressful. And he's going to learn that he can't control his environment, but he can control how he responds to his environment. And so the person who's actually in the greater challenge is going to have the greatest lessons. They're going to become the strongest. They could become great teachers because they know from firsthand experience exactly how to use the practice, to use the principles to make a better life, in spite of how bad the home life is. Does that answer your question? A few weeks ago, we went through what, on the one hand, and I purposely did that, I called it one of the greatest martial arts books ever written, but that's sort of a tongue-in-cheek because most people don't really understand how martial arts can touch their lives. And it was Zen in the Martial Arts by Joe Himes. And within the first few months, we require that of students in the Kung Fu side to really understand how martial arts applies to your life. The philosophy taught through martial arts is to live life differently, to see life differently. And the person who gets those messages from never having heard it before can completely change how they see the world, and then how they respond to the world, and therefore what path they end up on because of it. It's a simple book. It's actually a pretty low level. It's the most introductory level to the philosophy, but it's also very, very practical and very, very good because it's so simple. Simple can be the best without the complexities. But that book, for anybody who's here, maybe just for the Qigong, and you never really had the opportunity to read that, I highly recommend that book just to kind of, I guess, get where I'm coming from with these Thursday nights, but also, and you can go on YouTube and look at past talks, and those are, I think those are posted by now. We're purposely a little behind to sort of, put them in a timely manner, but there's a lot of talks already online that you can, anytime you can tune into those and get whatever that week's message was. And it's not a matter of me knowing everything, it's just a matter of seeing it in a certain way. And that book is an example of that certain way. From conflicts to having to be busy all the time, to asking too much of yourself, to being demanding and impatient with trying to learn something. Things take how long they take, and there's really nothing we can do to control that, which actually makes me want to very briefly go through the 5 ways to really get anything. And it's something we've always taught in class, but it feels like it's been a little while since I brought it up. But these are the things you can control. It's number 1, you got to show up. So even these Thursday nights showing up is plugging in to a message that you're probably not getting in too many places unless you're making an effort to get them. You're a regular reader of these kind of books, or you follow certain kind of spiritual leaders, etc. If not, you're just that hamster on the wheel, with stress all the time. Sometimes you just need to step out, listen to a different perspective. If a question and answer comes up like tonight, you can ask a question, how does this pertain to, and then we get into it from a philosophical perspective, and it creates a little different pattern of thinking that maybe you bring into your life, right? Of course, at the end we meditate for a short time, which also makes a habit to shut things off, recharge, and then you can come back with more power, more energy. So that sort of that habit of actually doing what you say you're going to do. Like you're a student, Blue Dragon student, you show up. You show up for meditation often as you can. You show up for practice. You show up for class. Just showing up is the huge step in anything, really. If you had a goal for getting some sort of degree at any age, you have to show up for class there too, right? You have to show up and do your homework. You have to do your readings, or you're never going to learn that subject. After you show up, you got to train hard. You got to train hard, meaning you got to make effort. So if it's a physical practice, you got to sweat. You got to push yourself. You got to do the reps. See, showing up and training hard, this is how you don't really get bored. You go in and you throw your palms, or you do your fan Zhang, or you do your breathing, or you show up and you do it. And you do it for some time. You don't jump around this, that, and the other thing. You do reps, hundreds of reps, to really get something down. And the third one, you have to train with focus or train right. Practice makes permanent. Only perfect practice makes perfect. So if you're mindfully going through the reps of whatever it is you're trying to get good at, you will perfect it. And you really shouldn't be jumping around to other things unless you have perfected it, right? Practice to the best of your ability that day. Every rep, best of your ability. And if you get on your own case, that doesn't help anything. That's why number 4 is patience. It takes how long it takes. It doesn't matter if you do it 1,000 times today. All you're going to feel tomorrow is soreness. Real meaning of Kung Fu. My own definition is just an expansion to make it clear how it's actually perceived, the words, because it simply means time and work, but it's actually achievement through consistent effort over time. Nobody who ever became great at anything dabbled. Nobody who ever became great at anything didn't fail more than most. But that failure led them to success. And of course, the last one. So we're showing up, we're training hard, we're training right. We have the patience, it takes how long it takes, and you've got to conquer your mind, your ability to sit quietly in a room alone at peace. Your ability to actually control your thoughts, to turn it off as you want to. Anyone ever get a song stuck in their brain? Can't get it out? Everybody, right? Challenge yourself to get it out. Yeah, I have little games I play. You know, it's like just as I'm walking, just feel the ground. Pay attention to the ground. What do I hear? Maybe use my senses to shift my focus. And then I forget the song. Because the only way you can control your thoughts is to place your thoughts on something else. You choose. You choose where to place your thoughts instead of it running its own way on autopilot. If it's running on autopilot, there's a lot more running on autopilot, which goes back to the whole thing we talked about in the beginning. You don't know what's going on in your subconscious. So that's why it's like, where's the song even coming from? Something from the subconscious came forward to the conscious, right? And now you can't get it out. You're like a robot, stuck, programmed. Yeah, get control of that. Practice controlling your thoughts. Think what you choose instead. Your feeling, maybe something you smell, taste, hear. That's just a game I might play. Let's use my senses to focus on something different. You know, like I'm hearing the crickets outside or something. Just instantly shift. And that becomes my focus, you see. Last question. I'm going to very briefly very briefly, because I want to get to meditation, make sure we have some good time tonight. But in the last class, I brought those guys through a sequence that is really important and sort of why I love this particular martial art so much, the Bagua. It has ways to practice that you have this time, you do this kind of a sequence. Or what kind of a sequence? Well, you warm up, you loosen up, you take the body through a range of motion, right? Oh wait, I forgot something, didn't I? First, you shift the mind with a couple moments of silence, a little meditation. You shift from whatever you were doing to be here now, and then you start warming up. And then, you know, the complete Bagua martial artist is doing the physical side, the Kung Fu side, and the Qigong side. So we throw different kinds of striking drills. Basic striking, and then it can become more advanced depending on your level. Different kinds of strikes. A lot of them are developmental exercises in how to use the body much like a whip. How to control your power, how to develop power from looseness. So it's not about being bigger and stronger. And so you're throwing these vigorous strikes and you're really not moving around much. You're pretty much stationary. And then after throwing a lot of strikes, you can just start doing stationary Qigong. You see? You go from something vigorous and hard to something soft with breathing. Qigong, remember, is focus with breathing, with movement, all three coordinated together. And that starts to become a cool down, doesn't it? Now, once you start cooling down, calming down, that's actually a good time to sit down. Go through breathing exercises. Then meditation. And then You can, because we are active in our day, you can finish with circle walking, which is a moving meditation. So you go from controlling and quieting the mind into moving and quieting the mind, which is actually closer to bringing it into your day-to-day life. So you live in more of an alpha state, you live in more of a mindful state, aware, instead of busy, 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 distracted. So you see that sequence? From a warm-up to vigorous to cool down, breathing, meditation, circle. 6 things in the sequence. How long with each? Depends how much time you have. You can do a lot of reps or a little less. But that sequence takes you through, it's sort of like how a day goes. From the wake up, right? Sunrise, midday, very active, come down, settling, cool down, quiet. See how it follows natural principles. Let's go to meditation.